Joining us now is former Austin Police Chief Art Acevedo to add some context, some perspective from the law enforcement, perspective. You've had a chance to look at this video. Tell us your initial thoughts.
Disappointment, shocking, anger, because it's a failure. There's no defending heavily armed police officers, heavily armed, well-trained, helmets, vests, everything they needed to end this threat. And unfortunately, it appears that they put their own safety above the safety of innocent children and their teachers. You only have a golden hour in trauma. And they knew without a doubt that we had multiple young children shot in there, which means you have to make entry. Then on top of that, we see that more gunshots are being shot throughout that hour. What they did in an hour and 17 minutes later should have been done within minutes of the arrival of police, and they have a lot of tough questions to answer.
What do you make of and we showed the video earlier, the two initial responding officers appear to go right to the room. They're right outside there. They take gunfire, and then they essentially begin what was the waiting period. Did they do what was right then, and what happened in their decision making to stop what they were doing?
Well, we're gonna have to, that's the question that Tony's bringing up, the why. And I've got my own sources because obviously we've all been talking about this. And from what I've been told and what I've heard is that the police chief from the school district, he decided this is we have a bunch of kids down, they're probably dead, we're not quite ready to make entry. So he assumed that they were dead. And from my perspective, and I think the training is you must assume that there are kids shot, and the only way to find out is to make entry. And he moved from a active shooter mindset to a barricade suspect. And like Colonel McCraw said, that was the wrong call. But it's not just him. We got to see what other agencies were there, who else was there. Everybody's pointing the finger at a 6-officer Uvalde police chief in the Uvalde Police Department. But I'd like to know who was there, when did they get there, who was in the chain of command, because I think they have tough questions to answer as well.
I think one of the things too that needs to be pointed out is that while all of this was happening, one of the two teachers who died called her husband and said, "I've been shot." And even then, entry was not made. So I think there's a big question about whether or not her life could have been saved.
Well, and not only that, Tony, the children were calling 911. Yeah. There was more gunfire happening. So Chief, you've got heavily armed officers in this school for more than an hour. Talk to us really about at what point, is there a tactical reason as to why they would not go at some point that we've been watching ample opportunity? What could be a reason to not go in?
Again, from what I've been told, the safety of the officers took precedent over doing what we're supposed to do, which is aggressively move in. Look, I've talked to my TAC guys, my SWAT guys from Houston. I've talked to folks all over the country, and they should have gone. Remember, there's 2 classrooms, and there's a Jack and Jill bathroom. If the gunman is in classroom A, then you enter from classroom B through the windows, through the doors. If you have to go through the sheetrock, the drywall, you do whatever it takes. But there was no excuse. There is no legitimate excuse to sit there and wait for all those, for an hour and 17 minutes to act. What they did, there was nothing special that they had at the end other than some BORTAC team members and a guy that decided enough's enough, we're moving in, and they took them out.
So the tough question is going to be for these families, and this is the reason we wanted this video out today, is because we wanted people to see exactly what's been talked about over the last month and a half, 2 months. Is there someone responsible? Is there someone that should be held responsible for what happened that day?
Well, I think you start with your incident commander. You start with the person who's in charge, but then you have to back up and start looking about who else was there. Do y'all remember the Santa Fe shooting? I was the Houston police chief. We got the call. My executive team, we got in cars, we drove as fast as we could because we knew it was a smaller city. They actually asked for our help with our bomb squad, so forth. I assure you that had we gotten there in a timely manner and we still had an active shooter, we weren't going to worry about jurisdiction. We would have done whatever it took to go in and take out that threat, which is what should have happened in this case.
Chief, what, if anything, do you feel can be learned from this video, from this horrible incident?
Well, I think that one of the things that we need to understand is that we need to do a better job of keeping these firearms that you had dozens of officers and they were held at bay. So the biggest tragedy here, other than the horrific law enforcement response, is that we're no longer talking about gun policy. We're no longer talking about the person that did this. We're no longer talking about how do we prevent it in terms of these attacks on schools and theaters and churches and everything else and supermarkets. We're just focusing now so much on the law enforcement response, which we need to, but we should not lose sight of the fact that we need to do better in terms of overall combating of gun violence in our country.
Chief Art Acevedo, thank you so much for your time and your expertise being here. I know this is difficult to watch. I know you've dealt with a lot of these instances, but this is just terribly difficult for these families to go through. So thanks for your expertise here today.